Welcome to the Payal Nanjiani Leadership Podcast. This is your host, Payal Nanjiani, and each week we bring you an inspiring thought leader from around the world to help you unlock the success within you and for you to become a great leader. Thanks for joining. And today we have with us in the studio none other than Manisha Kapoor, the CEO and Secretary General, Advertising Standards Council of India. She is also the Executive Committee International Council for Advertising Self-Regulation. Manisha heads the Advertising Standards Councils of India, a self-regulatory body that is committed to the cause of fairness and honesty in advertising. She also is a part of the leadership team of International Council of Advertising Self-Regulation. Over the past 25 years, she has helped companies establish and nurture brands through brand building, new product development, marketing strategy development, as well as media strategies. She has worked with corporates, NGOs, foundations, and international development organizations to develop programs that work effectively for business while simultaneously creating social impact. Her specialities are self regulation, brand definition and strategy, CSR, cause marketing, and public policy. And she joins us today on the Payal Nanjiani Leadership Podcast to talk about ethics. And Manisha, welcome to this podcast. It is such an honor to have you here with us.
Thanks, Payal. Absolutely my pleasure to be with you.
And I have not even read half of your introduction. So just let us know a little bit about yourself, your career journey, and how did you get to where you are? Is that something you were always passionate about?
So I mean, I started off with school. I did my business management. Then worked in marketing with leading organizations like Unilever, with Johnson and Johnson, and then had a long consulting career. Again in the area of marketing strategy and business strategy. I also worked for a few years in the development sector, consulting with on different projects. Issues in the development sector. And so in that sense, yes, communication, marketing, brands have been a passion of mine. And I happen to be actually on the jury of the ASCI's, Consumer Complaints Council in my role as a consultant. So, there is a quota for people from the industry to be on the jury, and I used to be on the jury. So that was my introduction to ASCII. And so I mean, it was in 2020 that I was offered this role, and I stepped into it, not really fully knowing what it would be to be on the other side as a regulator. But it's been very interesting. It's been quite enriching for me personally. And I think I've also had the opportunity to bring in new ideas and thoughts into how self-regulation of advertising can be done. So I think it's been a great journey, a lot of new initiatives, and a lot of action here at ASCII.
Oh, okay, but like now that you are the CEO and the Secretary General, and like you said, it's been an interesting journey, very enriching. What are some of the lessons that you have learned in your span of your career?
So there are some which are in the area of understanding brands and and how organizations work, and then of course there have been lessons learned as a person and as a business leader. So one is, I think, from a brand's perspective, is to really look at consumers in a way that you understand that you are not the center, that we believe most loyal consumers of our brands, we really play a very small role in their lives. And how relevant, how do you drive meaning to stay relevant, to be picked out and when the occasion arises, I think is a huge challenge. And I think we shouldn't take that for granted, that we are any one particular brand is extremely important in the consumer's life, in a very significant way, unless you are, of course, in a situation or in a particular circumstance where your role may be kind of enhanced. So one is to kind of really think of consumers as human beings, as as people like you and me, and how much time do we really think so deeply about the brands that we use. So one is to, I think, just understand that, and therefore start to play more meaningful roles in their lives. But we have to remember that eventually they are about their lives and not about our brands. uh, so that's one kind of learning that I would take. I think also similarly to look at people within the industry, your colleagues, your peers, other stakeholders that you're working with, also as human beings. We tend to look at people only through the lens of their roles. But that's not how it is, because the person on the other side may also like to watch movies, may be fond of a particular cuisine. And how do you therefore, I think, always bring that understanding into your interactions with people? So whether it's someone who's working with you in your team, or someone who is, could be a senior government official that you're talking to, or could be, the CEO of another company, uh, to really understand that, again, not to understand, but I think not to forget that we are all human as well. So I think those are the two things from an organizational standpoint. I think, how do you really, I think, nurture a culture where people feel good and feel good about their work, and therefore are able to make most meaningful contributions, and actually enjoy coming to work. So I think those are the two or three things that I would say are important lessons for me, and some of the things that I believe in strongly.
So I like when you said, when you ended it with, I enjoy to come to work every single day. And, when you say you enjoyed coming to work and you've been doing so much in your own career, Manisha, have you ever faced imposter syndromes or doubts or fear as you have been moving through this journey of yours?
Yeah, I think so. From time to time, you are in organizations. I remember when I had started my career, it wasn't really the done thing to speak what you were thinking of. I mean, so there was a lot of validation you were seeking from, your peers or your work group. You felt that you had to fit into a certain way of being, and what the culture of the organization was. I think by and by you learn to find your voice. I was also fortunate to have some really good leaders and mentors over the years, who taught me the importance of work-life balance,
Hmm.
importance of what the popular opinion was, and to be respected for that, and to be, again, if things don't go your way, that's okay, but that your voice is important. So I think I've also been fortunate to have both over a period of time, as you grow and mature yourself, find your own footing, also start to understand what your own strengths are,
Yeah.
and so I think that is a journey of evolution. I'm sure every professional kind of goes through that. And yeah, I mean, I've always been of the view that, by and large, if I'm given a task and I put my mind to it, I feel I can do it. So I don't get daunted by things that seem difficult. I don't get overly stressed about those. I mean, I'm in a solution seeking mode, so things keep moving ahead. And yeah, so I think, I mean, I've learned so much along the way. And at every point of time, I think the idea was to contribute as much as you could, to keep yourself open to learning new things and different things. And I think that's stood me well over a period of time.
Okay, that's nice. And you are passionate about talking about ethics. So, when you talk about ethics over the years, I'm sure you have derived your own definition of work ethics. So, what does work ethics mean to you?
I think in the simplest terms, it's how you would like to be treated is how you should treat others, and whether that's whether it's brands, whether it's advertising, whether it's your own way of behaving, and conduct. I think that's, to me, you would never want someone to cheat you, or to do something underhand to you. you, and then fundamental level, in terms of just how I internalize it, that's the way I look at it. And it's also about what's the right thing to do in the long term, because a lot of so-called ethical dilemmas, arise in the minds of people because there is a short-term gain, which is to be made, and which maybe people are seeking, and is part of your deliverables and things like that. And you know that what you're doing to get that may eventually not be the right thing, or may actually harm your brand or your reputation. And the temptation to do it is because you may not kind of think through the long term. But maybe if, and I think some of this also comes with age, when you've seen enough cycles, and you've seen what the long term can look like. When you're very young, you may not even know what the long term looks like. Now that you've been through a few cycles where you see how things play out eventually, I think again it's a question of the maturity and understanding, where today it doesn't seem like a dilemma to me. I think perhaps in when I was maybe younger in my career, um, I think the question of whether I should do this or not, and I think it seemed more of a dilemma to me than it does now. I think now with time, maybe just one is older and wiser, and that even if in the short term, things may not necessarily go to the optimal that you may have thought of. It's okay. The long term is coming soon.
So any situation you remember where, like when you spoke about the ethical dilemma, any situation you recollect where you actually had an ethical dilemma, and how did you process that?
Yeah, so it was actually a very tricky situation, because I remember I was we were shooting for a film, and we were on set, and the director of the film was also working on some other product categories, and he was kind of just having a casual conversation with someone else. And actually he was talking quite openly, which he shouldn't have, of a few strategic secrets, which I'm sure the company didn't want from a competitive point of view. A close friend who may have benefited a lot from that information. And the question was, whether that is something that I should disclose or not. And I mean, I eventually took the call not to, but I mean, I should rush to my friend and, say this, because this is really going to help her. But thankfully one had been taken through enough, what is an NDA and things like that. So you kind of have a sense that not everything should be disclosed. And yeah, so I think it's just small things. I mean, I don't think a lot of times ethical dilemmas are not on very large life or death things. They're usually on very small, everyday. I lost you a bit.
So, so Manisha, like you were talking about, ethical dilemmas. Any incidences or instances that you remember from your career life where you faced an ethical dilemma, and how did you go through it and process it?
Yeah, so when I was a young brand manager, I was once on a shoot set for one of our advertising films, and the person who was directing our film was, I overheard him talking to a colleague of his on some other film that he was working on, and he was discussing the script, and it so happened that a dear friend of mine worked in that category, and the products that the director and his friend were discussing happened to be her competitive product. And it was a fairly new strategy that the brand was taking. And I remember thinking at that point of time, my instinct was at first that let me call up my friend and tell her that, hey, this is what your competition is up to. But I think just given that perhaps because I was working in a large organization, and, they had all these orientations for us in terms of what, trade secrets are, and, what, even if some information comes to you that's not supposed to come to you, how are you supposed to deal with it, etc. So I think thanks to some of that orientation, although my first impulse was to share with a friend information that may have been useful to her, eventually I did do that. Um, but so it's small things like that. And also I think as you kind of understand and internalize these things through your career, you also realize that a lot of ethical dilemmas are about things which actually are quite small everyday things. It's only very rarely that you
Yeah,
face
right.
ethical dilemmas that are really disproportionate in nature to your everyday lives. But yeah, it is about how do you kind of process it, how do you go through it, and sometimes I think in that sense, training orientation does help to help you process it and to kind of sit back and think what the right thing to do is.
Okay. And like you said that with time you learned more about ethics and you were less into such dilemmas. What are some of the ways people can be ethical at their work?
Yeah, so I think um, see, ethics is again not something that necessarily has to be imposed from the outside. I think each of us has, their own moral compass. Each of us knows intuitively when we do something that is not right. There is a voice that tells us that this may not be right. We may still end up doing it. We may have rationals and justifications as to why we did a few things, but internally, when we do something which is not right, we know it ourselves.
Yeah.
Um, Now, of course, in a corporate world, it is not just your personal sense of ethics that matters, but also there are some corporate values, some in which corporates would like to handle, a few things. And I think you learn through those structured rules and orientations as well in terms of, how that kind of impacts how you think about things, how you think all the gray areas that inevitably come up in life and at work. I think I think to be open to your own moral compass, and then of course, as I said, there is also the formal use of an organization and kind of aligning yourself to that culture as well.
And I liked when you said the voice inside of us usually guides us most of the time. But I think many of us don't listen to that voice. We just crush it down. We are not listening to it, and then we realize it later on that the voice was really telling us the right and the wrong.
Yeah, so I think, I mean, that is the advantage of being older and wiser. You've then seen a few times where you may not have listened, to what you thought you should have done, and, the consequences that played out. So I think you learn. I mean, I can't say that every single person, including me, is always right. And truth is also sometimes not so simple. It's not always black and white. You take information or you take decisions based on the information available to you at the point of time, based on your own kind of development and growth as an individual. I mean, there are enough things that all of us, have done in the past, thinking they were the right things to do, which in hindsight and over a period of time play out to be different than what they were. I remember when I was a kid, and things made of plastic had just kind of made their entry, and you were kind of, and it was so exciting because plastics was kind of positioned as a way to save trees. That if you use this, you don't have to use.
Yeah, yeah, right.
So you, at that point, you would have started to use plastics also with the sense that this was the right thing to do. Now, of course, over a period of time, that has not necessarily played out in the best possible ways. So today you may say, okay, I'm going to shun plastics and go back to natural products. So I think like that, situations, people, narratives also evolve. And I think so long as you are doing at that point of time what you think to be the right decision by being kind of listening to your voice, by also I think putting the burden on yourself to do a little bit of homework, to do a little bit of research before you make some of these decisions. I think, and the newer generation that's coming up now, it's very exciting because they're very vocal about some of these things,
Yeah, very
and
much.
yeah, and I think our generation has a lot to learn from them and by listening to them. So I think these are important times, interesting times, and I think also you can kind of, in retrospective, kind of look back at your own journey of learning about ethics, what is right, what is wrong, how your own approach is, uh, as with so many other things in life. So yeah, I think it's about doing, at least at that point of time, what you believe to be, the right thing to do.
Yeah, and I think with the age of the digital age that we are in, there is so much of information now, so much of, like you said, people are more vocal right now. And I think that's the best part of this entire ethical talks that we are having, is because nowadays it's very easy to get online, share your views, speak about any unethical things that are happening. So, Manisha, what would be your advice to people who want to succeed in their career?
So, my own career has been so fluid uh, that I think the best advice that I can give is that there is no really one way to succeed.
Wow, that's
And
lovely.
yeah, and there is really no one definition of success. Uh, and the grass is sometimes always greener on the other side. But it's so for example, I mean, if I look at myself and my career, I have been through so many different organizations. I have had so many different kinds of I'm doing advertising regulation. I mean, I'm not a trained lawyer, or I've been in marketing all my life, but just being open to different opportunities, I think has brought me to this stage. I also know people who are very successful in their careers who stayed in one organization all their lives. Now, if I look at them, I feel okay, maybe they're earning more than me because they've kind of, they may have a fancier designation. They may look at me and feel, wow, you've kind of done so many different interesting things in your career. So I think it's for each person, to define, what they define as success. For someone, a successful career may be a career that allows them to balance maybe working with other things in their life. For someone, it may be that they're able to dedicate themselves to one thing only, and that for them is meaningful. So to me, it is not about success in career. To me, it is about, can you make a successful life, and your career is only one part of it.
Absolutely.
You can't, you can't maximize one thing and then you will kind of lose out on something else. So the idea is, how do you find an optimum solution for your entire life, and where does your career fit into that? And I don't think that you should compare yourself too much with other people. Think of what seems meaningful to you, and pursue that. That's, I mean, to my mind, to me, that is what is success, for you to find your happiness and meaning. Everything else is peripheral.
I think that's really profound, Manisha, especially when you said that your career life is just one aspect of your life. You really can't maximize one thing and minimize everything around you, which I think is a great learning for all of us. Manisha, I would love to wrap this up with the leadership rapid fire round. And
Sure.
whatever comes to your mind very quickly in one word or a sentence is what we would love to hear. What's one thing that you wish you had known when your career began?
That I could speak my mind more freely than I did.
Nice, because all of us hesitate a lot in that. What's your personal mantra or quote that helps you throughout the day?
I don't really have a personal mantra or a quote. I mean, I just take each moment and day as it comes. So I'm happy doing that. I don't think I have
I
a.
think that in itself is a mantra. Just take each day as it comes. That's a lovely one. The biggest leadership myth that you've heard.
Needs to know. I don't think the leader needs to know it all. I think the leader needs to be equally a learner, uh, and learn from their teams. I mean, uh, I think leaders don't know all the answers for sure.
Beautiful, and I completely agree to that. One thing that motivates you to get out of bed every single morning.
I think the sense of purpose on what I have to kind of do that day. It is the fact that I have a wonderful team at work. So I look forward to kind of coming and meeting them. We are doing a lot of exciting things together. So yeah, I think it is just that sense of what has to be done through that day.
Okay. What is your favorite part of being a leader and doing what you're doing?
I think it is the ability to, work in a team that is looking up to you. You're able to kind of influence them, through the way that you have learned, and hopefully, push them to become better than you were at that age. So I think that is it's very rewarding. It's really rewarding.
Okay. Which superpower would you choose? Invisibility or mind reading?
Uh, I don't know, maybe invisibility when there's too much work. I mean, mind reading, if it allows you to read your own mind accurately, that would be a real superpower.
I like that. Very few people say I would like to read my own mind accurately. That's good. If you could change one thing about the corporate world, what would that be?
Uh, the loftiness and how seriously people take themselves.
Mm. Yeah, we do. I think a lot of us we feel that everything is on our shoulders. Wow, that was great, Manisha, and you've been an awesome guest on the podcast. You've shared such great values and incredible thoughts. So thank you so much for taking the time to be on this podcast.
Thank you, my pleasure. And yeah, you've given me some things to think about as well. So yeah, it was really interesting for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And this one's for our listeners. This is Manisha Kapoor and Payal Nanjiani wishing you loads of success in your career life. God bless.